Until only a few years ago, I was completely in favor of console gaming. There was something unbeatable about sitting comfortably on the couch, connecting a console to the television, choosing a game, and simply playing. No graphics settings, no compatibility checks, no troubleshooting. You inserted the disc or selected the game from your library, and you were ready to go. It was simple, comfortable, and immediate. For a long time, I genuinely could not see any reason to replace that experience with gaming on a PC. But that started to change when I became more invested in playing every game from my favorite JRPG franchises. I did not want to play only the newest Final Fantasy, Trails, or Tales game. I wanted to explore the entire history of those series, from their earliest entries to their most recent releases. And that was when I started realizing just how enormous the PC catalog had become. For many franchises, a single PC now gives you access to an incredible number of games. In some cases, more entries than any one console has ever offered. And sometimes, the gaps on consoles made absolutely no sense to me. With Trails, for example, some consoles, not naming any names, had Trails of Cold Steel 3 and 4 available for years, but not Trails of Cold Steel 1 and 2. Personally, releasing the third and fourth parts of a connected story without providing the first and second parts made very little sense. Of course, not every game has received a native PC release, but emulation has become far better than it used to be. With a PC and emulation, I could explore games from several generations without keeping numerous discontinued consoles connected to my television. More importantly, emulation is no longer only about making an old game run. Many older games can now be played at much higher resolutions with cleaner image quality, widescreen support, improved frame rates, and other visual enhancements. Games that originally appeared blurry on older televisions can look remarkably sharp on a modern display. So, with native releases and emulation combined, I was finally able to explore practically every part of my favorite franchises from one machine. For a JRPG fan, that changes everything. But emulation is only part of the reason I changed my mind. The PC modding scene is sublime. You have graphical upgrades, restored content, quality of life improvements, new interfaces, gameplay rebalancing, custom tools, fan translations, voice acting projects, and complete engine replacements. Websites such as Nexus Mods and Game Banana contain thousands of projects created by people who still care deeply about games that publishers may have stopped supporting years ago. A game does not necessarily stop evolving when its developer releases the final update. On PC, the community can continue repairing it, improving it, and finding entirely new ways to experience it. Some of the clearest examples are HD texture packs. These can dramatically improve games created for older systems, especially games from the PlayStation 2 era. Blurry environmental textures become sharper, menus and interface elements become cleaner. Character details that were difficult to see on the original hardware become much clearer. A good texture pack does not replace the original art direction. It attempts to preserve that art while presenting it more clearly on a modern screen. Legaia 2 is a great example. With higher rendering resolutions and improved textures, the game can look far cleaner than it ever did on its original hardware. Some texture projects are so extensive that the finished result can feel closer to a modern remaster than an emulated 20-year-old release. PC gaming and emulation also provide access to games that many of us would never have been able to experience otherwise. One of the best examples is the fan translation scene. Dedicated teams have translated complete games that were originally released only in Japan. These projects can include story dialogue, optional conversations, menus, tutorials, item descriptions, and battle systems. Growlancer 6, Tales of Rebirth, and Tales of Destiny DC are only a few examples. These are not minor menu patches. They make entire JRPGs accessible to English-speaking players. Without the work of these communities, many excellent games would remain inaccessible to a large part of their potential audience. For fans of more niche franchises, these translations are not merely convenient. They are often the only realistic way to experience important parts of a series. Sometimes, fans go much further than creating a patch or replacing a few textures. The Legend of Dragoon now has Severed Chains, an unofficial, reverse-engineered PC port. This is not simply the original PlayStation game running through an emulator. It is a dedicated PC project designed to preserve the game while improving performance, adding quality-of-life features, and allowing far greater support for modifications. Projects like Severed Chains show what can happen when a passionate community has the freedom to rebuild and preserve a game that it loves. A classic console game can gain a genuine second life on PC. Fans do not always stop with translations, modifications, or ports. Sometimes they create entirely new games. One example is Fantasy Star, 20 years past, a complete fan-made JRPG inspired by the classic Fantasy Star series. Projects like this allow communities to revisit worlds and styles of gameplay that their original publishers may no longer be interested in exploring. They do more than preserve the past. They allow a series, or at least its spirit, to continue decades after its original releases. That level of commitment is difficult not to admire. Then there are projects whose ambition is almost difficult to believe. The Echo S team created a complete voice acting mod for the original Final Fantasy VII. And when I say complete, I do not mean that they voiced only the most important story scenes. Main characters are voiced, minor characters are voiced, ordinary NPCs are voiced, even tutorials are voiced. They effectively added voice acting throughout practically the entire game. The sheer amount of work involved is extraordinary, and the quality can rival or sometimes even surpass voice acting heard in professionally released games. It transforms the experience without replacing the original story, structure, or visual identity. And this is where all of these community projects begin to come together. Take the original Final Fantasy VII on PC and install the Seventh Heaven Mod Manager. You can add high-resolution backgrounds, improved effects, cleaner interfaces, redesigned character models, smoother animation, and complete voice acting through Echo S. You retain the full original game, with its original structure, story, exploration, and combat, while dramatically modernizing its presentation. I know this will be controversial, but with the right combination of mods, I would argue that it can be an even better experience than Final Fantasy VII Remake. The remake is obviously far more technically advanced, and it was created with a vastly larger budget. But the modded original gives you the complete original story, world, pacing, and combat system, while improving many of the elements that have aged the most. For players who want to experience the original Final Fantasy VII rather than a reimagining of it, that can make it the better version. It preserves what made the original special, while enhancing it through the work of fans who clearly understand and love the game. To be fair, PC gaming is not always as effortless as turning on a console. Sometimes you need to configure an emulator, sometimes you need to install a patch, choose the correct settings, or spend time assembling the right collection of mods. Console gaming still has a simplicity that I completely understand and appreciate. But in return for that extra effort, PC gaming offers something that no individual console can provide. It brings together generations of native releases, emulated classics, fan translations, graphical upgrades, restored content, community-made ports, and entirely new fan projects. It gives older games a chance to survive, and sometimes allows us to experience significantly better versions of them. For me, the question was no longer which platform was the easiest to use. It became which platform allowed me to experience the greatest number of games from my favorite franchises and experience them in the best way possible. And for a JRPG fan like me, that platform became PC. But what about you? Do you still prefer the simplicity of console gaming, or have emulation, mods, fan translations, and the larger PC catalog changed the way you play as well? Let me know in the comments below.